Welcome to the Inner Tuning Podcast, where we share and discuss the teachings and chants of Sri Shyamji Bhatnagar. My name is Richard Matisaw, and I'm joined here by co-host and fellow ChakraInstitute student Joe Shoemaker. Sri Shyamji is a master of Nad Yoga, the yoga of sound, founder of the ChakraInstitute, and creator of both microchakra psychology and the inner tuning system for psycho-spiritual well-being. As many of you already know, our beloved teacher, Sri Shyamji, left his physical body on April 30th, 2025, and this will be the second podcast without him participating live. In this and future podcast episodes, we will share and discuss teachings and sounds from the robust and profound archive at the ChakraInstitute. The excerpt for today comes from a 3-body purification retreat at the ChakraInstitute in New Hope, Pennsylvania on May 28th, 2010. Before we jump into the excerpt, is there anything that you'd like to add, Joe?
It might be a good opportunity to pour yourself a cup of dandelion root tea for your liver, perhaps, or maybe even some Tulsi tea as a tonic for the entire body. We'll be talking about tonics. So get your favorite herbal tea and settle in.
Sounds like you're in a purification.
We are a vibrating sound producing light. Our 3 bodies are doing that. And we have organs of perception. Why don't we feel it? Why don't we feel the light? Why don't we see the light? Why don't we hear the sound? Because all the batteries that are supposed to be contacting, because it's a very complex system, if one of them is not doing it, can't see the light. Yoga was designed to keep the body in that shape. Pratyahara was designed so that the subtle body can be in touch with the physical. Dhyana, meditation, was devised so that the causal body can incorporate and allow the 3 bodies to become one. The Trinity has to become one. Our senses are victims of multiplicity. Five senses and 3 gunas make up for what is called Ashtadha Prakriti. Asht means 8. Echt. Asht. Ashtadha Prakriti. Prakriti is nature. 8-fold nature. Body and mind are composed of those 8. To make it complete, you must develop, if you have the blessings of the Mars, that's the number 9, that's the 9th factor, not visible. Then the 3rd eye starts to open. The 9th factor is Sakshi, S-A-K-S-H-I. Every meditator learns to witness without judgment. That judgmentless witness teaches us, or the sages teach us, how to utilize the Sakshi by taking a distance from the body, Like I taking a distance from me. I taking a distance from my feelings. I taking distance from my thoughts. Because Ashtadha Prakriti has enveloped the subject. And the subject is being drowned in the objects. So by taking a distance, you begin to realize that the subject has an independent existence from the objects. Subject by definition should be independent of the objects. If you go logically with the grammar, but we are not logical people. We try to be logical at times. The equation is, I am in the nature, but not of the nature. I am in the nature. I live in this body. This body lives in this house. This house lives in New Hope. New Hope in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania in America. America in the planet. But I am not the planet and I am not this house. And I am not this body. I have it. Sakshi is the method, the number 9, to take a distance from it. To be able to take a distance, we have to silence all the saboteurs. Saboteurs occupy your body. Saboteurs occupy our feelings and our thoughts. And we have a very strong relationship with them. And in the process, we just make some other force responsible for our own state. God wanted me to do this. What? Did he make a phone call? I believe because it feels good. It feels good. When we take opium, it feels good. It doesn't mean you need it. And what is that? What is a tonic for the saboteurs? Apana. Apana is a tonic for the saboteurs. You take away the apana from them and you watch. They fall like summer flies.
One of the things that we love about Sri Shyamji's presence and his worldly knowledge of the body and the subtle body is that he can very adeptly articulate what's happening and how to remedy it if what's happening isn't working for your system. And he discusses this concept, this quality of Apana. And when I first learned of Apana, I was clueless about it at the time, but quickly realized that when this energy is high in the body, at least in my body, there's a level of stress that accompanies it. And when it's low, which is the purpose of the purification, is to decrease it and put it back in its seat lower in the body, that there is significantly less stress and the body feels lighter. And that was one of the virtues of doing the purification process. And if we can't do that with him now, obviously, how do we engage in our own purification so this concept of Apana can be naturally lowered? So, Rich, why don't you talk about what Apana is and how on a daily basis we might be able to navigate it?
Thanks for bringing that up. Apana, as Sri Shamji explained, is one of the 5 pranas in the body, or the winds. And the Apana is the downward wind, or prana. And so it's meant for elimination. And as he explained so many times, it belongs in the first and second energy centers because it's eliminating physical matter, feces, liquid matter, urine. That's what it's doing. And when it's in its proper place, doing its proper job, the body's at its healthiest state, and also the mind and the emotions are most grounded because the toxicity is being removed. So that's the rhythm of Apana and the rhythm of the chakras. And so Sri Shamji always talked about how important it is to be up before sunrise and optimally to have a bowel movement so Apana is grounded before sunrise. And then it's the time to be able to sit in silence at sunrise, the most pure or sattvic time of the day, to absorb that purity and just like take in the energy of the sun. And so our habits, just being, modern people, is we often don't do that. And so as Joe was mentioning, the teachings share that Apana starts to go up to other energy centers, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, and so on. And that has physical, emotional, and psychological implications that we live with. And he talks about the saboteurs and the Apana being the tonic of the saboteurs. And so a way to think about it is we all have saboteurs in the different energy centers, and the higher Apana is, the more of them are being fed. And because of that, the more we are challenged by our emotions, our thoughts, our physical pains when the Apana is feeding the saboteurs. And so that's a lot of theory. And I think, as you were mentioning, Joe, you experienced it during purification. And that's what I can share as well, is like, I love the theory. I learned about Apana in yoga school. I never really understood it until Sri Shamji really focused on it, because it was just sort of like something on a test. But the experience is what it really mattered. And just going through the protocols of a purification, he did it in such a methodical and scientific way. There are tons of different ways to cleanse the physical body. But the point is, it's not just that. It's also being in the rhythm of nature, for Apana to come down fully and stay down. And so all of these things, like being up early, having the bowel movements, eating clean food, having clean thoughts, all the sort of like common sense things to be healthy, they clear the Apana. And then some of the challenges that feel overwhelming just fall away like flies, like he says, like dead flies. So that's what came up.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So there's so many layers to this. We're talking about a downward moving energy that, when displaced, becomes upward moving and then creates an imbalance in these energy centers where it shouldn't be. And so the direct experience of this is, let's just say, a cleanse. You don't have to go through a 5-day purification to experience this. You could just simply eat light for a few days, and suddenly you are having bowel movements more regularly. So let's just say, for instance, you're constipated. Apana is not moving down. Apana is too high when you're constipated, because otherwise you would be in a natural flow and you'd be going to the bathroom 1 or 2 times a day. This is a sure sign that either Apana is high or low, whether or not you are moving it or it's stuck. So if we're stuck, we know Apana is too high, and that this is the perfect opportunity to remedy it through food choices.
Right.
And there's lots of different food choices for that we won't go into today. That's a whole other Ayurvedic talk. But that's a perfect opportunity is to reform the diet so that we can sort of soften the energy in those lower centers.
Mm-hmm. And optimally, if we're able to, given our lifestyle, is to do a full flush, because it really requires not consuming like we'd usually do with solid food. So at the purification retreats, as many people listening probably know because they've done them, you don't eat, you do liquids that are helping you to eliminate, and that's 4 or 5 days, and you feel so much energy because you're removing a lot of the blockages physically with digestion being clogged and stuff like that. So your body gets energized by getting rid of all the waste material, but it's deeper than that. It's like Apana can ground, and the emotions and the thoughts change along with this elimination and cleansing of the physical. So it's sort of the starting point. And I remember my first purification retreat in New Hope, Pennsylvania in 2011. And I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And, why am I spending like 5 days sitting on the toilet? And, because he had used all of these things like vitamin C and different mixtures of herbs and salts or whatever it was that, and I didn't really know anything about this stuff. I was just participating, but I cleansed and flushed for 4 or 5 days. I'm like, I can't believe I haven't eaten a thing, and I'm still flushing and spending time in the bathroom. And it became like more thrilling to eliminate than to consume. And that was a switch in my psyche that never left me. But physically, I felt like a child again, like the energy of a child that I had lost my memory of. And it was just like an amazing experience of what was Apana going back to where it belongs for the first time probably in my life.
And for some people, and this is a modern day example because this was told to me by one of my clients, they were prepping for a colonoscopy. And the prep, it's called the prep, is Epsom salts. Right. But they don't know that. Most people don't know that. And so when this person took it and he started clearing out, he was surprised, first of all, but he was more surprised by how good he felt because he'd been carrying weight, physical matter, but he'd been carrying emotions tied to it. And he was alleviated. He was availed of feeling so much pressure and so much more heavy in his body. Isn't that amazing?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. As Sri Shamji said in this excerpt, the saboteurs are so powerful and deceiving and overwhelming, and we all have them in different ways in different places, but we can't hear the champions. The champions are the other side of the equation, and we have them too. And so where Apana is, say Apana is in the 4th chakra, for example, all of the saboteurs underneath that point are stronger than the champions underneath that point. And that's sort of the science of this. And because of it, we hear the saboteurs with the doubt, the fear, all of the insecurities, whatever they are, and we don't hear the champions until Apana gets down to like the 3rd or the 2nd chakra, and then the saboteurs above it are too weak and the champions are louder. And it's sort of like, this sounds very mathematical or something, but it's actually true when you experience it. And it just teaches you that the saboteurs are just made up, and we don't need to live with them, but we need to find the rhythms that help us to keep them grounded and to keep the champions in their superior role.
So we have cleansing, release, Apana moving downward into its rightful seat in the first 2 energy centers. And then we've got opportunity to really hear the champions as a result.
Mm-hmm.
What a beautiful practice. Anything else you want to add?
I thought it was really interesting, the part about the 9th factor being Mars and associating that with Sakshi, the witness. And so he was talking about Ashtadha Prakriti, the eightfold nature, the five senses, the three gunas or qualities of energy, and sort of like those eight making up everything. But the ninth is really sort of like the power, the subtle power, that witness that can just observe it all, like from the third eye, and not be like caught up in it all. So I know before we started recording, you were talking about this topic a little bit, and I was curious after listening to the excerpt, what's coming up for you?
There's a quality in meditation that I find once I get settled and I get deep enough and I'm allowing for myself to just be really soft and silent and present, that I can bear witness to the quality of my thoughts without integrating with them, without merging with them. And that's what this reminds me of. I don't know if I can be completely in this ninth factor, but there is some essence there where you start observing, and I certainly have had experiences where that's been elongated. And then you have instances where you sort of pop in and out of it, depending on where you are in your life and what the quality of that particular meditation or life experience is. But I feel like this opportunity exists to get there more often, and that will lead to a much more enriching and stable life emotionally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's all tied together. The stuff about the Apana being grounded, it makes it easier to even practice your whatever it is, your yoga or your meditation, because that's exciting to the champions. And then by practicing, it's like building that muscle of Sakshi.
Sakshi, yeah.
It's a tongue twister. That ninth factor. And that's the way I remember thinking about it as I was learning and practicing at the ChakraInstitute, is it's like, okay, it's like going to the gym and building this ninth muscle or whatever you want to call it. And little by little, it gets stronger and stronger. And that doesn't end. It's just like a continuous practice, but it's liberating. And I know he says that so many times, like, I am not this body, I am not these emotions, I am not this mind, I am not these thoughts. And really, when you can spend a little time and experience that a little bit, it becomes more real. And it's like a liberating process.
Which, if you meet somebody who is inside of this liberation process, you sense just how even they feel in your presence. If you're tuned in to energy, you can just be in their presence and feel a calmness and a groundedness, and that sense and that connection that you've got to them that's an indication that the work is being done, at least from my opinion. And within the self, you can sense it too, because we don't tend to react as heavily or as quickly. I think reaction just sort of dissipates, and then you take a more poised approach to solving a problem.
And that just brings up this idea, we're not the ego, we're not the personality. And I think in a future episode, we can share an excerpt with Sri Shyamji teaching about the different egos, each chakra having an ego and a mind, and just talking about sort of the deconstructing those, and not feeling like we are those, just like the body. Because when we identify with these different egos or minds for these different energy centers, we become attached so much to what they're all about. But we just have them, and he keeps reminding us we have them like possessions. And it is our job to take care of them like we take care of all our possessions. But it's the identification that creates the vicious cycles of dramas and traumas
and pain. Yeah. Oh, there's so much to explore here. This is a very, very rich subject matter, of course. And what we'll do is we will leave you with a chant from Sri Shamji that if you listen to with your eyes closed or at least descended gently, will impact you in some visceral way, if you allow it to, just by simply breathing normally and sitting silently and quietly.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add to that is this chant is really about grounding Apana. It's a first chakra chant. And so, as Joe said, with your intention, try to be focusing downward, whether your eyes are open or closed, and see if you're feeling that downward motion of Apana. And, this is a chant, it's a Ganesh chant. And there are many out there that it's really practical and useful to do first thing in the morning. So it's helping Apana get grounded to set this foundation for a great day.
And we hope this sets the foundation for either a great day or perhaps a great night whenever you're listening to this. And we will be back with much more.
Dev Gana 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 Ganapati Dev Ganapati Dev Ganapati Dev Deva Deva Ganapati Deva Ganapati Deva 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 Ganapati Deva Gana Gana Ganapati Ganapati Deva Deva Gana Ganapati Gana